King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Welcome to episode 669 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. A lot to cover. Let me give you the rundown. So we're going to talk about the Royal Rumble coming up this weekend, and some thoughts that I have on how I'm sure the IWC is going to feel that WrestleMania plans will be ruined with the results that we'll see at the Royal Rumble. I'll talk about that and speculate. Nick Khan had another major interview with the likes of the Sports Business Journal and talked about really making over the company and validating a lot of the points I've made on this very program about, he says it like this, that he wants to make sure people don't see Vince McMahon's business as a mom and pop shop. We believe we're a global content company. That's Nick Khan's words. We're going to bring that up in a little bit. I also have a few things I want to bring up just outside of the other news, where we have to talk about the world of GCW and the pay-per-view that happened this weekend, the significance of it, which I did a little bit of commentary on my TikTok page at King of Podcasts if you want to go take a look further there. The other thing I also want to talk about is Impact Wrestling. I went to their tapings in Fort Lauderdale this past weekend, and not so much talking about the show itself as much as it is how the shows are being done and how the crowd really responded to the event. I really want to bring that up because I think now that we're seeing Impact Wrestling now back on the road, you know, they did the shows at the factory in Dallas, Texas, their initial shows back on the road after being in Nashville, Tennessee, and their studios there for a long time, Skyway Studios, back on the road. I wanted to see what it looked like as you go out there. So it's going to be, you know, it's one of the few times they've been on the road, and now they're going on tour on the road to Rebellion. So that I want to talk about a little bit later on tonight. We'll bring all that up here on the program. And Ring of Honor and their plans of coming back out. So they've already announced a match for Supercard of Honor, and they have other plans coming into place, including Hall of Fame inductees, so much more. But let's get into Royal Rumble. Now, with what they did this week on programming, I'll say this. There's been some rumors that have been coming around, lots of them. This is the time of year where WrestleMania hype could be as positive and as hopeful as you could possibly want. And I can appreciate that. But how well is it going to pay off? We know, and I've done this show enough times, where we get to WrestleMania season, the hype has started, even if we're not necessarily completely satisfied. But you know what? My fellow podcast brethren, they are ranting and raving. They are ranting and raving about the shows being better. Oh yeah, the matches are getting better. What we're getting out of the matches are getting better. The matchups are doing good. The angles are starting to come around. Yeah, everything that we would expect all year round, we're finally getting more of what we want now, because there are storylines and angles that are getting formulated right now leading up to Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble match is a bit secondary, but we know that the importance of the match itself, there's not much they're going to do in terms of building up the Royal Rumble match within matchups in the show, except for just building up individual stars that should have good showings based on their performance during the off season, especially during the touring schedule when everything happened. But you should all well know that who they're going to have at the very top are going to be the same stars that are the greatest hits. When you look at the top of that roster, okay, on the men's side, Raw, Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley. SmackDown, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, which now Seth Rollins has moved himself over there for this title feud. I don't know what that talks about with the brand split. I don't give a shit about that. And for those that talk about the brand split and thinking that needs to happen, they do it in principle. I'll say it like that. But then the other part is that the touring schedule that they have, with the amount of shows they do, they're doing Raw, SmackDown, and Super shows. They want to individualize the touring schedule for those shows that go out there. For those that are going to Raw and SmackDown, you have to split it up a bit because of the amount of times that some of these stars are going to be going on the road, because the Raw and SmackDown tours are separate. And when you're looking at who's going to go out there, you just, I mean, except for certain stars, like you might see Roman Reigns and Charlotte Flair, and and Becky Lynch and others like that will be working major shows, and they'll be working a lot of the house shows because they have to be in that main event. But the rest of the roster, the mid-card and the other mid-card title holders, doesn't matter. You can split them up. But that's what you have to do. You give them a couple matches for each house show, and you give them something to like, they appreciate. We're going to be there to try to fill those shows. Now, the TV shows, not so much, but you could tell the TV shows have been suffering. They're making it look full within the construct of what they have going on in the ring, where you see the ringside areas that they want to show you on camera. But if you're seeing WrestleTix or any other sites like that, there are quite a few times you're going to towns, they're not filling the house. They will for bigger cities, but some of the other towns, they're not filling out like they used to. You're not hearing them say capacity crowd a lot of times. SmackDown, better chance than you'll see for Raw, but that's what's going on. And for Raw, you might be getting a third to a half of the arena filled. The problem for them is that they can't run smaller arenas because of their setup. They have to use the setup they have. Only the arenas they go to are equipped to take that big monstrosity of a stage that they put out there. But then for them, they don't have to go ahead and build props and other things to go with it. They just have that big video stage that's completely, done like it's done. Plus they have the, augmented reality graphics that they use throughout their shows instead of having so much pyro and having so much other stuff they're using out there to, individualize the stars that are coming in. That's what they're doing. Now, as it goes for what they have set up for Royal Rumble, the matches are all set up. Let's go and just go through them real quick. It's on Saturday night, 7 o'clock bell time, Dome at America Center, St. Louis. And your matches so far, we already know that we have 22 confirmed names as I record today for the men's Royal Rumble match. Johnny Knoxville, Rey Mysterio, Dominic Mysterio. I'm not going to go through the names, but I'm going to go through the names that I think could even be in the consideration. I'll narrow it down to 5 names that I think out of this current list that could be possible. Now, Busted Open, they had Tommy Dreamer and Dale LaGreca talking about Omos might be the odds-on favorite now because of what they're building him up to be. They've broken him off of AJ Styles. And it doesn't matter if he can't wrestle. It doesn't matter how green he is. The size, the shape, they can, I guess they're going to feel like they can go ahead and cover up all those negatives that he might have right now of being able to work a match because Great Khali wasn't any better. Okay? So they could do that right now and say, okay, we're going to go with this. And so Omos could very well win. I mean, I don't expect Randy Orton and Riddle to go ahead and do anything, but Randy Orton could always be considered. I would think he's going to be a top 4. He should be one of the final 4 in that match. When I look at it, Kevin Owens could very well be, but that's not where I think things are going to go either. Of the stars they have here, Big E, could he be considered? To me, I don't think so. But then I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know who they would have that would get the title shot at WrestleMania because that's what we're expecting. I don't think that person's on this list right now. I think what happens is that the Royal Rumble match will be handled later in the night, and that will get either Bobby Lashley or any of the title holders or the challengers. So either Lesnar, Lashley, Reigns, or Rollins, I think they're going to enter the Rumble match after their title match. Whether they win, if they are on the losing side of it, I think that's what's going to happen. So I look at it like this. With the men's Royal Rumble match, I think Bobby Lashley wins his match over Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar enters the Rumble. And I think Brock wins. That's it. I don't think any of those other stars, unless you want to go an outside favorite with Omos, that's what I think is going to happen. Bobby Lashley will win the WWE Championship. Brock Lesnar will enter the Rumble match late in the game. He will pummel. And this is also kind of revenge for him, avenging the fact he got tossed out last year in the Rumble match to Drew McIntyre. Even though Drew McIntyre's not going to be in it. But that Brock Lesnar's going to be in the match after all and win it again. Yeah. And that's going to piss people off. I really think that's what's going to happen. Because then Reigns will beat Rollins. And then I think Reigns will take on Brock Lesnar as planned for the Universal title. That's how they play this in. That's how they book it. Because then that Rumble match validates Brock Lesnar's chance to go after Roman Reigns. That match they were setting up for in the first place, we have to have that match. We have to have, that match because they were setting it up. We never got the payoff to that match. They got to do it now. And that's what they'll do. They'll use the Royal Rumble after they take the belt off, because the other thing, too, is that I think, personally, that when Bobby Lashley wins that belt back, I don't think we're going to get a one-on-one match. I think we're going to get another three-way or four-way where Seth Rollins will go back over after losing the Universal title, get his promised match against Bobby Lashley, and then I think Big E might get thrown into the mix. But I think Lashley Rollins is what you get on the WWE Championship match at WrestleMania. But then I think you get at Elimination Chamber, something else happens where that's the match in Saudi Arabia where we're going to get a change to what that WWE title match will be. But the Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar match will be as a result of Brock Lesnar dropping the WWE title and entering the Royal Rumble later in the night and winning. That's how I see it works. I could be completely wrong, but I'm going to go with that. Now, in terms of Becky Lynch and Doudrop, that's not even a question. Becky Lynch will win. When I look at the women's Royal Rumble match, okay, the SmackDown Women's title will not be defended because Charlotte Flair will be in the match herself, so that she can pick who she's going to get to face at the Royal Rumble. What I think will happen is, number one, Charlotte Flair is going to get tossed out by the winner of the match. Of the participants now, we have 21 names, and on this list, let's look at the names that you could consider that wouldn't be outside of the scope of reality. Mickie James. Yeah, you could absolutely do Mickie James, have her be the one that tosses over Charlotte Flair, wins the Royal Rumble. Hey, she shows up on SmackDown for a while, flashes the Impact Knockouts title, and title versus title. I mean, you could do it. I don't think they're going to do that, but we could play along in fantasy book like that. The other names I see, well, we know Shayna Baszler's not going to be put into anything like that right now. I look down the line. I'm not looking at Lita doing anything. Naomi, even though she's getting a little bit involved with Charlotte Flair, I don't see that either. And I think Sonya Deville will enter herself into the Royal Rumble match to toss out Naomi. Or they'll have some confrontation out there, and Naomi will be screwed. I guarantee that coming up. I think that's pretty within the scale. Carmella, I wouldn't throw her out of the whole mix either. But I think Bianca Belair will win the Rumble match again, and she will toss out Charlotte Flair. And then I think Bianca Belair will move over to SmackDown again, and she will challenge Charlotte Flair for the title. Meanwhile, Becky Lynch, I think it's one of two names. Now we're seeing Alexa Bliss back, and they're slowly working herself back, and eventually she'll be back in the ring. I think that Becky Lynch will either have to take on Alexa Bliss, but I think the more obvious name will be Asuka returning. And the whole thing that Asuka was given the belt, and Becky Lynch is now back with that belt again. And, Asuka just feels like, well, I'm going to come back and take it because she had, what was it? Didn't she? I forgot if she got injured and dropped the belt. I forget the whole story behind it. But I think Asuka, Becky Lynch again, they might go to that again. Or the other thing would be happening is I think Ronda Rousey will enter the Rumble match as being rumored right now, because it sounds like she's back. Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey for the Raw Women's title. Yep. I mean, you could go Charlotte Flair. I wouldn't mind them doing that. I think you could take either or. But yeah, I think Ronda Rousey against Becky Lynch. That's the money match. That's what they'll do. And I think Charlotte Flair will take on Bianca Belair, and Bianca Belair will challenge. No, but then if that's the case, Ronda Rousey would just be winning, and Bianca Belair, would be out of sorts. But they could do that too. And then who would they have coming back for Charlotte Flair? Sasha Banks, back from injury. They could just go that route. But if they're bringing back Ronda Rousey, then unfortunately it's another moment where Bianca Belair is going to get pushed down the card. It sucks to see that happen, but I can see where they do that. And it's unfortunate because I really would like to see Bianca Belair get back and stay in that main event picture. So if you're not going to put her in the WrestleMania match, then put her somewhere. I mean, do something with her, please. I'd prefer that she be in the title picture somewhere, somehow, and keep her there just like she was last year. I mean, if you could put it Charlotte, Bianca, Sasha, I'd love that. Because then Sasha and Bianca can kind of rekindle things again. And then you can go ahead and go back to Charlotte. And then Charlotte obviously is the hated right now. You put that together, make it a three-way. Triple threat, SmackDown Women's title. And then Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, Raw Women's title. And then on the men's side, I'm thinking Bobby Lashley in some kind of a three-way match or something like that where Seth Rollins is involved. You could put Kevin Owens in there. Who knows? And who knows if anybody else is coming back. Meanwhile, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns for the Universal title will happen. That might be the matches you have. Now, are there any names right there that you hear that you feel like, oh wow, this would be the IWC would be thrilled and over the moon? No, because these are all the names that have been up there before. No new names, no NXT types. Now, we know the Royal Rumble match. There's already been some rumors about the men's match where you could hear maybe Braun Breaker entering the Rumble match. God, man, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Braun Breaker, if he were to win, and I think it would challenge Bobby Lashley, who would win the belt, and then you'd have that match. I don't think that would happen. That's just too. I don't think that would work. But you could hear possibly where Braun Breaker and Gunther, the former Walter, will enter that match. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ciampa goes in there. I don't know if they would let him in, or if he wants to still be that. But we know that Ciampa's been looked at dark matches. And we know that LA Knight's been looked at dark matches as well. So those four names could also fill the mix. Man, that's some decent surprise if we can see some of these NXT stars come in. That'll get the IWC buzzed. But it's just hope. All you're getting is wishful thinking and hope. But the stars that you want to see in WrestleMania, you're going to see some tired names up there. Oh, Charlotte Flair's back up there. Becky Lynch is back over here again. Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, right? Seth Rollins, who knows? And that's what you're going to get. Big E's going to be left out. When you're looking on the men's side, you're not going to see Damian Priest in that mix. No Austin Theory. If you're looking on the SmackDown side, no, we're not. Or you're not going to see Randy Orton up there. But then again, you'd be tired of Randy Orton too. But okay, Big E, no, he won't be in there. But what they will do, which is always the hope and wishful thinking, is Elimination Chamber. You will have the 5-man Elimination Chamber for whichever title. I'm guessing it's the Raw Men's, the WWE Championship will be the one that's the definitive Elimination Chamber, right? And then what you'll do is, then you'll have those 5 names. That's where you put Rollins. That's where you put Big E. That's where you put, you can put Austin Theory in there. You can throw Damian Priest in there. Give them a rub. And that's when they'll get their rub. Leading up to WrestleMania. But then the names they want to have on the marquee, when it leads to 2 nights at AT&T Stadium coming up in April, yeah, they're going to want, and this is what I think it is. I will put it out there again. This is my solid prediction for WrestleMania based on what the outcome of the Royal Rumble is this weekend on Saturday. We'll get a 3-way match, triple threat for the WWE Championship one of those nights. And then we'll have Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch cap off the first night. The SmackDown side will be consuming the second night of WrestleMania. And that's where I think Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns will face each other on that night. And then I think maybe a triple threat or a singles match where it's a Charlotte and Sasha, and Charlotte and Sasha right there. I mean, I think that's what you have on that other side. And then you find Miz versus Edge. You bring that match together. When you look at what else they have, there's other matches they could put together. We don't know what those are yet. But these are some of the thoughts that they have right now. And we know the tag team titles are going to be included. We don't know what's going to be about that. Usos are going to be involved, or Street Profits are going to be involved somewhere. Like, we don't know what that's going to be. Like, personally, the tag team picture, I wouldn't even defend the titles at WrestleMania. I would just throw them into a battle royal and make them the tag team battle royal. And the winner just gets, I don't know what it is. Like, throw it as the tag team gets a trophy. Something else. Because I don't feel any interest in the tag titles on either side. When it comes to the women's tag titles or the Raw and SmackDown titles, I have no interest. I mean, you would prop them because if it's RKO and Riddle, Randy Orton and Riddle, yeah, you want to put that in there and make something out of it. But I don't know. I don't know what you do. But they're just not significant. Not to the rest of the whole show itself. And then you got to ask yourself, like, will anybody be coming back? Like, is there any chance John Cena comes back? Probably not, because he's got Peacemaker that's working right now, and he's doing promotion for that, and I'm sure he's got other projects in the works. So, no. He's got Wipeout to do, too. So, that can't be there. No Rock. We're not going to get that. No Undertaker. We're not going to get that. I mean, I think we get an appearance by Undertaker in Dallas. Not a match, but I think we get something with him. We could get a cinematic match, but then who's going to go and take him on? Wouldn't it be nice if we had a Texas death match with him or something like that? But I think, do another cinematic match in Texas, right? And I don't know. It's just a thought. And Undertaker would be more of like somebody trying to attack him at his home in Texas. And then that's what you set up for that match. I don't know. This is just fantasy booking. I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe something will actually happen. I'd love to find out if it does. Anyway, Edge, Beth Phoenix, Miz and Maryse, mixed tag team match. Becky Lynch, I said, a sure thing over Doudrop. Edge and Beth Phoenix, Miz and Maryse. I think Miz and Maryse get it, but then Edge will get his win over the Miz at WrestleMania. That's where I think things are going. And something tells me I think that Edge and Miz will probably be like a steel cage match. Something else, I don't know. Just a thought. That'd be, actually, I wouldn't be minding too much of that. I mean, you could put like that. You could make it a Hell in a Cell. I don't know, something like that where you just get to this fever pitch. Or Falls Count Anywhere, something. Like, we can make something here, and then Miz will just have to go all out with Edge, and then you just have to go to another intense match. So the kind of match that Edge had against Randy Orton, greatest show ever, or greatest wrestling match ever at Backlash, right? You just do that. Another style match like that where it's just like all over the place. I don't know. So that's what you got. Now, and then after that, you're roughly 3 weeks away from Elimination Chamber. And then you got 6 weeks. Streamline up the WrestleMania. Night 1, April 2nd. Quite interesting. And then a buffer in between because AEW will have the Revolution show on March 6th. So if you need a wrestling pay-per-view to watch in March, you got AEW to be your buffer between Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania. There you go. And then remember, Supercard of Honor actually held April 1st, so the night before. Plus, we know some other shows are going on, too. The other thing that was being talked about is NXT will have a takeover show, marquee event on Saturday at noon, going till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. After Friday Night SmackDown on April 1st, Hall of Fame, immediately after SmackDown's run live in Texas. They'll run the Hall of Fame after that. That's the other thought that's been talked about too. So that's catching everything up. Now, what I want to talk about next, and by the way, before I move along, Royal Rumble, we will do a post show right here at WrestlingIsReal.com. Stay tuned for it. I will bring that up. I'm almost I'm almost thinking about doing it live somewhere. Maybe I'll do it as a Twitter space. Maybe I'll do it as a Facebook. I don't know yet. But I mean, probably Twitter if I do it. I'm thinking about it. Do a Twitter space, put it up there, and then just do the show and just see what it does. Like, I might just do it in the background. Not even like really paying attention to it, but just have it where it could be live. I'm thinking about live streaming it. Thinking about it. But I will absolutely have a show for all of you to listen to after the fact. WrestlingIsReal.com, or look for me on YouTube, youtube.com/JBRASCO951. But everything you need to know, everything that's going on, latest news, all the past episodes, WrestlingIsReal.com. You can find it all there. Now, as we look at what is being done right now with WWE, and, you know, this is the time of year where there's a whole lot of hype and a whole lot of talk about what they're doing. It's huge. And this is the time of year where WWE is back in the hype again. People are high on the hog on it. They're feeling good about what they're seeing. So the hope train is chugging along, but will there be disappointment? Yes. Hopes will be dashed as always, but that's only for the IWC, for the entitled, heralded, safety bubbled IWC, Internet Wrestling Community. Now listen, I'm thankful for all of you that listen to this show in the first place and that you hear me out of what I'm talking about. So don't get me wrong, okay? I'm not shooting you down. I'm just trying to, speak reality. Again, wrestling is real. I'm saying it out of reality. I'm not trying to sugarcoat. That's not what you expect from me. What I know is that this WrestleMania season, what Nick Khan has been talking about right now and the changes they've been making, it's not your regular run-of-the-mill WWE that you've known for years. As Nick Khan has explained, Nick Khan and what he's saying to people in the few interviews we hear from him in, you have to pay attention and realize, okay, now we know where this direction is going. And we've speculated about the direction that this is going, where, some of my podcast wrestling brethren on YouTube or, on podcast form, or they're doing videos, whatever that might be, without naming names, they're all going to say Triple H. Oh, everything that Triple H touched turned to gold, but it's getting destroyed now. And Vince and Bruce are basically destroying the legacy that Triple H has brought upon. Now, I mentioned this on TikTok, and this is because somebody was talking about, the constant AEW, WWE bickering, the partisanship, as we will. It's almost like politics now. If you are a WWE fan or an AEW fan, and how people respond to each other. What I'm going to say is, listen, IWC, it's a playground. And we're all at recess. We're a bunch of overgrown kids ranting and raving about wrestling, okay? Something we enjoyed as children initially, and then we grew to continue to watch. Just like a lot of Generation Z now, the I generation, they're all grown up on anime and cartoons, and you know what? We don't want to grow up, right? For those 30, 40-year-olds that are still watching the MCU or DCU and following all the cartoon movies, right? Everything that's going on with the comic books, with the Batman and Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and, Peacemaker and all this other stuff. Yeah, we're all overgrown kids. It's like, hey, I'm the same way. I got LED lights in my room and, this in my bedroom and the man cave. And yeah, it's all this kind of stuff. I haven't grown up yet, man. Not to the point. I mean, I still grown up to go and have a career and, make a living for myself. But for the most part, I still feel like I'm 21 years old in my mind. So I relate to all of you. But still, business is business. And WWE, at the behest of their broadcast partners, of which they're getting paid $250,000 each per year, NBC Universal and Fox, which is attached to Disney, they're getting paid handsomely right now. NBC via their broadcast deal and the Peacock deal, which is another $250,000,000. Like, listen, they're making a lot of money, and not to mention $50 billion for when they go to Saudi Arabia each time. You're talking about $750 million a year just on that. Then you got the loss leaders of the house shows, but they're making money off of merchandise. Okay? Off the advertising. The sponsorships that are loading up left and right. All these tied in things that they're doing when it comes to creating commercials for said products, like if it's, Cricket Wireless or Pizza Hut or whatever it might be, right? Or Dollar General. To integrate things like Jackass Forever coming up in theaters, in 2 weeks or in a week. And, the type of involvement they're getting. Bad Bunny and his tour, promoting that after putting him in WrestleMania last year and leading up to it. Like, think about it. They're paying off and they're doing relationships. They're doing now. Some are barters, but then also some are some paid deals. And there's things they're getting involved where there's money being involved. There's a whole lot that's being done here. So it's a marketing promotional machine. That is what WWE is, a global content company. And they are. The fact that they're global content, when you have to consume it in 3 hours or 2 hours, it's tedious, it's a bit boring, and it's a bit much. But when they take that content, which is basically we're watching a live show raw, right? And I'm not doing it as a pun, but we're watching the shows as they happen, just like the crowds do. So you're really Raw and SmackDown are TV tapings. So they're being run like that. And they don't necessarily translate perfect to what you want to watch at a wrestling show or what you want to watch in terms of getting all the matches that you want to get and excitement. And just, like it's an NXT show going back to the Black and Gold era where like every match had like shock and awe, spot after spot after spot, near fall after near fall after near fall, and just an adrenaline rush across the board. You can only sustain that for so long. And the truth is, the types of matches, even AEW can't even do those types of matches all the time. Where there's quite a few of the stars that were in NXT that have moved over to AEW. And even they know there's a way they have to go and do their matches and where they have to go and shuffle the matches they have around. I still got to talk about Dynamite. I'll do that in a little bit because that was an excellent show they had for Beach Break tonight. But now let's get to Nick Khan because this story is very important. I got to run through this. Sean Reuter, Cage Side Seats, makes a couple of big quick points, but then I want to get to the story that came from Sports Business Journal. So Nick Khan, WWE President, Chief Revenue Officer, spoke to Sports Business Journal and talked about how the makeover the company's received during Khan's year and a half on the job was the main focus of John Uran's piece. Khan didn't go into detail about specific changes. He didn't certainly name names, but his general explanation fits with what we know of the mandate that Vince McMahon gave Nick Khan when he was hired. Put the finishing touches on McMahon's transformation of his father's pro wrestling territory into a worldwide entertainment empire. Now, let's go into what Sports Business Journal wrote. This is from January 24th. And even at the start, John Uran actually explains that WWE today bears little resemblance to what it was a year and a half ago when media executive Nick Khan joined as President and Chief Revenue Officer. Vince still controls the media and entertainment company in Stamford, Connecticut. His daughter Stephanie and her husband Paul Triple H Levesque still have senior roles at the company as Chief Brand Officer and Executive Vice President of Global Talent Strategy and Development, respectively. Nick Khan said this, quoting Nick Khan, "If it was once a mom and pop shop, Vince certainly didn't believe it was anymore. Part of what I believe is he was looking for someone from the outside was to make sure the community at large didn't treat it that way. We believe we're a global content company. It's a mindset, it's a transformation, it's a process, it's a perception. As WWE has continued to evolve, going back to the 90s when they became publicly traded, corporate owned, shareholders involved, and the level of things they've been doing when it came to their social media initiative over a decade ago, to all the relationships they did when it came to getting more money for themselves and the deals they were able to get as a result, not even 4 years ago, where they got to deal with Fox and Peacock, and remember, transferring with the WWE Network, creating that platform, basically go ahead and just transferring it all over to Peacock and doing all that. They have been continuing to grow. This company, when you're talking about, where people are getting involved with it and just the legitimacy and the professionalism and the reputation that WWE's done, like it's far removed from the days of Hulk Hogan, far removed from the days of Stone Cold, The Rock. Hey, they laid the foundation. They all did. And the WWE is definitely happy to keep reminding you over and over, hitting you over the head of how great it was, and then to the point the fans can't stop talking about it. And then he mentions this. Oh, this is from John Orland in the article. It wasn't just the broader sports and entertainment community that Khan targeted with his push. Khan felt he needed to change internal attitudes as well. So the thought is that not only does it Vince feel like this company needs to be perceived differently as a global content company, the staff, the infrastructure, they need to have the people in place in positions of power that were going to treat the company as such. That the corporate mindset, the corporate philosophy had changed. And those that were going to be in positions of power, they were going to have to not be consumed to the small circle of things that we're doing before, how the things always were. They were going to have to go ahead and accept bigger ideas and either embrace these new ideas, embrace this new vision for the company, because that's what it is. Everybody need to be in lockstep with the new vision of the company, whether they like it or not, and totally be committed to it. And if they weren't, they were going to let go. That's what they did. They basically revisioned the company. That's what Nick Khan's doing right now. And why is Nick Khan getting to do this? Because he earned his stripes a lot, which is why I respect the man a lot, because he has done so much for this company. Because, before Nick Khan came to this and before all these broadcast deals were in, I was ranting on this show 6 years ago, afraid of what this company was going to do next, because they were putting so much money into the content and into the platform of the WWE Network that they needed to make sure that the network was getting enough subscribers to offset the lack of money they were getting on broadcast deals. They were trying to keep themselves growing, and they were being very aggressive on their network, of which it was done amazing. I will always say as well, WWE Network was fantastic. It was wonderful. They did such a great job with that. And Peacock's done a really good job for the most part of trying to keep the same set up. But, even though with the shortcomings that Peacock has, still, we're getting all this great content at half the price. I still can't complain about that. So now, just a reminder, before he made the move from handling all sports talent and content for Creative Artists Agency, or CA, one of the top talent agencies in the world based in Hollywood, to join WWE, he represented them as they sold their media rights to Fox and NBC. The Fox deal was worth $1 billion over 5 years. NBC deal around $1.3 billion over the next 5 years. Over 5 years, excuse me. And in those 2018 negotiations, Khan was struck by the attitude of some staffers in the company, most of whom were not steeped in the intricacies of media. Some of them, he said, acted as though they were fortunate just to have a seat at the table. They were content to negotiate with executives far down the chain of command. And he believed that business attitude, not to mention overall knowledge of the media marketplace, needed to change at WWE. Quote from Nick Khan: Vince believed that WWE was at a place where it had earned a seat at the adult table, but others in the company didn't see it that way. Yes. Nick Khan hit it on the head. WWE and Vince McMahon, for the longest time, he wants his company to be respected like every other professional sports franchise out there. He doesn't give a shit if the stuff they're doing is fake. They are as legitimate and as important and as relevant to the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, all of it. He believes that his product is just as important. Why shouldn't he think that way? And the way they position themselves, they have done it. People don't look down on, they might look at professional wrestling, but that's what Nick Khan's trying to change. Because now he wants to make it where WWE doesn't, you're not embarrassed. The mainstream America is not embarrassed at it. They look at the WWE as just like every other sports league. And they're going to do that thanks to the Next in Line program we've talked about, which was a great episode I did about a month or so back. Take a look for that and listen to it for yourselves. And as a result, the IWC doesn't want to understand this, or they just choose not to. And that's okay. Listen, you want to sit in your bubble and you want to just not believe, put your fingers in your ears and not believe that Vince is going to destroy this company and the way you see it. But he is changing it from the inside out. From within, they are making major changes. So what they did were the changes we've all known about. There have been rumors that were running rampant that WWE was prepping itself for a sale, and Nick Khan did address it, saying that the company has taken some inbound calls from companies looking to buy. But he stressed they're not in active conversations trying to sell the company, and they're not actively looking to sell. I don't think they are. It's too important. When things are going so well, even though the product is lacking, they are making changes that have to pay off, by the way. Because if they're going to go this route and they're going to abandon professional wrestling like they're doing right now, by the exodus of stars they have released 80 plus in the last 2 years, then they're going to have to figure that out. They're going to have to figure out that they can make the turn to this new style of product, this new vision where professional athletes become the focus again. Because it was like that before. Now it is again. And the fan base that he has right now, the diehard little fan base, I believe they're under the impression that, you know what? That diehard fan base, they'll get pissed off. And some of the ones that have already abandoned us will abandon. There's not much more left that will abandon the ship and stop watching altogether. It's a very small crowd. The crowd that would do cancel WWE Network, right? That's the crowd. Otherwise, they might even be the ones that are actually actively spending on house shows or merchandise or the network subscriptions, all those things. They might not even be involved. So they're probably not even looking at that because they're not worried about it because they're looking at the new audience they're trying to bring in. We already know that with NXT 2.0, yeah, the numbers are still not great, but they're exactly where they were with a different roster. So the same show that got 600,000 viewers, where you had the likes of Adam Cole, Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa, Kyle O'Reilly, Bronson Reed. You know, that level of talent that you had there, right? They changed all of them out, almost all of them. And then be able to retain that audience number. And the numbers have gone younger. So maybe that actually worked out for them better in the long run. Now, after Khan came to the company, he relocated to Connecticut with his family, went on a hiring spree. He wanted to bring in executives who shared Vince McMahon's vision about the size and influence of the company. And of course, he brought in people from his own end and people he had through connections he had through CAA. And this is what he did. This is genius. This is new information I didn't know about. But look at the level, the caliber of people they brought on board to handle it. This is not the kind of stuff we would see like, soap opera writers that are working on the creative team. We're talking about the executives that are actually working big deal right now. Listen to the names they have. 4 executives came from DAZN, which is the streaming service for combat sports, specifically boxing. So they picked up 4 names there. They're head of development and digital, head of global communications, head of digital, and head of development. So these are all people that can be within that are capable of handling a large company like this when it comes to combat sports, a large franchise like this. That's what they're doing here. Then he hired 3 executives from his old firm at CAA. Obviously, people that must have worked with him directly on the projects they work with the likes of Colin Cowherd and, all these other major sports announcers and hosts of TV shows and of, just various people in broadcasting they work with. So you had Scott Zanghelini and Alex Varga. They had revenue strategy and development, and Kristen Polly, senior vice president of operations. Then they took somebody from Fox, so they learned that they met from the deal that they had to get Fox to bring SmackDown to Fox. Claudine Lillian to run sales and partnerships because she already had the deal set together of doing things for Fox in terms of some of the relationships they have, where Fox is able to go and do marketing and do cross-promotional things and make money off of a lot of different ways. So they took her expertise and brought her in. Then they also brought in executives from ESPN, HBO, and Showtime, which all have sports content. High-end, high-quality, paid sports content. We talked about the broadcast deals. Remember that WWE Network is now on Peacock, part of a 5-year, $1 billion deal. Another 5-year, $1 billion deal. I mean, this is, you're talking about, the level of money that you have to have, the investment that these big media companies can have. Corporate America, Wall Street, and major sponsors, they're all paying attention to this right now. And Nick Khan also made the mention of that instead of having WWE Network, Nick Khan was actually forward thinking, because the thing was, I talk about it in my Broadcasters podcast, which is at broadcasterspodcast.com. I actually record that tomorrow. I've been talking about on that show where all the streaming services like the Netflixes, Amazons, Disney Plus, Apple Plus, all those, out there, they're all going to have to consolidate. They're going to all have to you just can't have all these different streaming companies. Listen, yourselves, okay? You're not going to pay for just Netflix and Hulu and all these other things and then spend the same kind of money you were spending on cable. You're not going to do that. So these companies are going to start getting into bed with each other. And then they're going to combine their services into bundles like we know for cable. So WWE Network, instead of putting out their own standalone, they decided to attach themselves to somebody. UFC did the same thing. UFC now goes to ESPN Plus instead of having their own standalone streaming network. Same thing with Peacock. Now WWE Network decided to go to Peacock because they had that relationship. And he said in this article, quote, "In what is now a clustered, over-the-top subscriber marketplace, streaming media, it only made sense to partner with somebody." And WWE executives see that deal as a template for other streaming deals internationally. So partnering with other production houses not affiliated with a company on programming using its biggest stars. And then he talks about the live events, which we know a number of them are going to be held on Saturdays instead of doing it on Sunday nights. And actually, SummerSlam, moving it from Sunday to Saturday, WWE credited the move with helping the event post the largest gate in its history. So people came out for that show. And that's what the story encompasses. That's a lot to take right there. Just have to beat it over the head for you folks. And you just have to realize they are making changes that make sense. They're logically smart. And I can't blame what the company's doing. That's why I still have a positive thought with them, because I'm following along with their vision. I see what their vision is. Now, my fellow podcast brethren, we're going to continue to go and hamper down the same old narrative that doesn't bode with what's actually happening with the company. Because I'd rather just play in the palace intrigue that's been going on for years. But WWE is not playing the same old, same old. They might be doing that within the creative, with what Vince, Bruce, Kevin Dunn, and that circle of people right there, John Laurinaitis, what that circle of people are doing right now within the actual day-to-day product. Where that nucleus right there is going to create programming, which, listen, right now with just what they're doing for Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, yeah, still sounds like they could do things right, but they're limited with what they have. They realize, sure, will all the booking be great? And how, will they handle the stars that are coming in correctly? Well, if they get enough names in there that are just, there's going to be a point where there's not a number of stars right now that have been brought in from next in line of the major investments, okay? Because what you're thinking about right now is the main roster right now is consumed of a lot of stars that have been through the NXT system. They're professional wrestlers. Initially, they never came from necessarily any sports background or anything like that. Anything that goes along with the new vision of the company as a digital content company, as a sports-related company with real athletes, with real legitimate athletic backgrounds. recruiting them in like they're coming in drafted in. They're going to the combines, if you will. You know, that's not what you're going to get from the Johnny Garganos of the world. You're not going to get that from the Finn Balor's of the world. You're not going to get that from the Austin Theories of the world. And I'm not putting them down as stars, but you have to look at what they're going to be doing. I mean, some of the stars that are definitely putting themselves behind, they all have athletic backgrounds. When it comes to Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar, you look at Bianca Belair, that's the nucleus. That's the kind of stars they really want to push themselves in the direction. Liv Morgan's, no. Big E, to a point. I mean, that's where they are with things. That's how they want to look at things. And so I will continue to be on this program to continue to put people into perspective of like, listen, come to grips and realize this company is changing a lot, whether you like it or you don't like it. That's it. That's the way it is. All right, I got a couple of things we're going to talk about when it comes to Impact Wrestling. So I went to the tapings on Friday night, this past Friday night, at the Charles F. Dodge City Center in Pembroke Pines, Florida. Not necessarily Fort Lauderdale, but they called it Fort Lauderdale. The venue, it's like a multi-purpose convention center kind of feel to it, because you know the size of the place is like a ballroom. Now, if you've ever been to NXT shows, you know the NXT show in West Palm Beach is the great example, because it was done like that. Like it was a big, large, ballroom space. I'm guessing it's like 30,000 square foot, something like that. Like it's a huge space, big like soundstage basically. Lighting grids up, and their normal Impact setup. So obviously, when you see all their shows, consistently, they have the same stage look, and you can't tell the difference into what the arena looks like at all, because they're not doing the shows in arenas. They're doing them from what they can use as they can repurpose as sound stages. And that's what they're just doing. But they're big enough to not be the studios in Skyway, which can only hold like 200-300 people. Same thing like what NWA is doing right now with the GPB studios or the NWA Arena, that's just a TV stage, a TV studio that can only fit a couple hundred people that they could probably get in there anyways, according to fire code. Meanwhile, at this particular venue, it's like a convention center with a big ballroom, so you could put a couple thousand people in there if you want. Like you could run exhibitions over there. Like if you think about a trade show, like a Comic-Con, you could probably imagine like they could probably put, about 100, 200 booths in there, all like, 10-foot booths, 20-foot booths. They would have that in there, right? They probably had 800 to 1,000 people in there. Because when I'm looking at the seats, on the floor, I was sitting second row. I was sitting right behind Tom Hannafin and Matthew Raywalt, who was doing commentary during the two tapings that I saw. Because I saw two tapings, one that's going to run this Thursday night and next Thursday night. And the matches I saw, Mickie James, I saw defending, she was doing a non-title match, I believe, with Chelsea Green, which got set up during the State of the Knockout speech that she does, scheduled for this week's Impact Wrestling. The Bullet Club was on both shows. So that was Guerrillas of Destiny, Tamatanga Tangaloa, Jay White, and Chris Bay. That was what was accompanying the Bullet Club, appearing on both shows. And they have continued the storyline of the Ring of Honor 5, now called Honor No More. And let's just say they added one more name to the mix, and I'm just going to leave it there and not spoil that. And Matt Cardona had a match for the Digital Media Championship, so he's going after another internet title against Jordan Grace. They had that title go on the line. That was the one title we had. And it was interesting where the Digital Media title is being used as a buffer between TV tapings. So the first TV taping was done. Instead of giving us intermission, they gave us the Digital Media Championship as the buffer, which is going to run on Impact Plus. And at the start of the night, we had two matches for Behind the Impact, which most likely that's the two matches that are going to run on Behind the Impact over the next 2 weeks, which was good. There was one debut that was really specific that I saw that was interesting, and that was Connor of the Ascension, now known as Big Con, K-O-N. who was featured in the match that'll be on this Thursday night. So he comes back into play, and that's where he's right there. And then other than that, now there's 6 members to Honor No More. I'll tell you, Kenny King showed up. He's now part of the group. And the crowd was all into it. I don't know how well it's going to turn out when you hear the show. But, the crowd responded pretty well. I don't think there were a lot of people in their hands. There was some good chants going on. I don't know if it's going to sound that well on TV, though. Because I don't know if the miking that they have specifically is more for the ring than it is the audience. But, when I looked in there that whole night, like it was only towards the end of the night that you started to see a little bit of a drop-off where some people might have left. But for the most part, everybody stayed in. And they filled every seat on that soundstage. And I'm hearing the same thing was happening the next night, which is great. Love that. So that was great. I enjoyed it all. It was fun. And that's what I had from that. And honestly, I just felt like Impact Wrestling had a good turnout. They didn't have any problems getting anybody out there to fill the place up. And they made it a great time. Like seriously, like the matches what they gave us, it was jam-packed. 3 hours straight up. And it was fun. And I think it's going to look great on TV. I was not bored with what they were doing on TV. What they gave us for the tapings, I didn't feel bad at all. And I think they got a lot of things working for them when it comes to, using the relationships they have now with Ring of Honor while they're on their hiatus, which I don't know, that's only going to last now, I guess, up to Rebellion, and that's it. And then Ring of Honor goes back to what they're doing. But at least Ring of Honor is still very important. Jonathan Gresham defended he didn't defend his title. Yeah, well, was he supposed to be GCW? I don't think he was. But Jonathan Gresham defended the Ring of Honor title against Steve Maclin on the tapings, and I forget if it's the first or second night. But he had that going on as well. That was really great. Damn, Steve Maclin was quite impressive. So you had that going on. And I didn't even get a chance to go and talk about the week before when Deonna Purrazzo took on Roxy, and they had Chamber versus Champion. And, I got to tell you, Roxy is a star. Man, I won me over in that match. What a great match. That young lady is just destined for greatness. She's amazing. So good for 21 years old. And, you can keep her around belts, and the fact that they had her as a Ring of Honor champion, she was great. Like any thought that she was not deserving, or so I was like, why did they pick her to be the champion? Man, they were right about her. And I think that the Impact Wrestling rub for Ring of Honor actually helps a lot, because all these stars that are being brought over from Honor No More, when it comes to Matt Taven and Mike Bennett and Vincent, PCO, it just is fun. It's good stuff all together. Okay. A couple of things I wanted to bring up about the World of GCW, which happened the other night. And, I made the point of the show for me. First of all, it was a lot that was being said about it, because there was word that business-wise, the show did very well. Fight TV actually just announced and mentioned that while the show that the Hammerstein Ballroom was the most ambitious to date, they got to sell out over 2,000 fans. I heard it was 2,200 for the largest pro event in the building's history. And Chief Operating Officer Mike Weber reported to PostWrestling.com that it was the most purchased GCW event in fight history. And GCW, they said the show did very well. It's the best show for them, not for fight. That would be the Tyson Jones fight from a year ago. But yeah. Mike Tyson, Roy Jones Jr., that was 700,000 buys they had for Fight TV. But the thing was, they mentioned that, it was very well on Fight TV standards, which is great. On the night, you had the Briscoes lose the GCW tag team titles to the mystery team of Matt Tremont and the returning Nick Gage, who got a royal welcome. They should have had more time. I guess I would say if you would have cut some time off of the Joey Janela, Matt Cardona plunder fest that was going on. Like, I get that whole story, but when you're on pay-per-view, if you would have had more time for that, they could have cut out of that match, personally. Lucha match was good that they had Gringo Loco, I remember seeing out there. Good to see Jordan Oliver in the brass ring match. Was wondering where he went. Jordan Oliver, formerly of Injustice and MLW fame, which was nice to see. Ruby Soho and Ali Catch was quite a good match. Ali Catch was impressive. I thought the video packages did very well. The production we could talk about, like they just didn't mic it that well, and the commentary was lacking. But they also didn't have a whole lot of production value when it came to the way the ring looked and everything they were doing, because they were trying to fill that place up. So they didn't put any particular stage out there. They really wanted to try to pack everybody in and just not even worry about what the wrestlers were coming out to. They didn't care. And the crowd didn't give a shit anyway. They loved it. Like, that crowd they have is a rabid fan base. Is good. I think when you look at the show from a perspective of, okay, there's going to be more wrestlers that are going to be interested in working their shows if the opportunity is brought to them. Fort Lauderdale's gotten that made up. Plus, he's made it where you go see that show and you see Nick Gage and you see all these different people, all the surprises. What he did was, it's not so much for this TV product, okay? Because for them, people are going to want to go to GCW shows. And if he wants to go on the road with it, he can now, because people will see that show and they'll say, you know what? I want to go to a GCW show. I want to be in that crowd. That ECW type feel, which it wasn't ECW, but I get it. I get why they say the enthusiasm's like that. So people are going to want to go to those shows. Wrestlers are going to want to work those shows. That is an accomplishment for Fort Lauderdale and this team. So good on them to have that. The other thing, too, is that they just need to work on the TV end of the product. Like the way they're presented, so that they can get more of an audience that will follow along as well. They should work on that next. That's what I think they should do as well. That's just my thought process on it. Okay, one other story I wanted to bring up, and that was Ring of Honor. Was there anything else I had in here? No, I think I'm going to cover everything. Ring of Honor is going to be launching a Hall of Fame with 4 inductees to be announced. From WrestlingObserver.com or F4WLawonline.com, they will be launching their own Hall of Fame to coincide with their 20th anniversary, which, while they Impact Wrestling also making the point that their 20th anniversary is this year, they're also making that where you'll see that in their graphics now going forward. 4 inductees will make their inaugural class, with the first inductee announced this Monday and the following 3 Mondays. So the next Mondays in February, every Monday in February, we will announce a new Hall of Fame inductee. And each February episode of Ring of Honor's TV show, in addition to a weekly YouTube special, will be devoted to that week's inductee. And Ring of Honor is coming back with a Supercard of Honor April 1st. They didn't say whether there'll be any type of ceremony after that of that event. By the way, the word was that with Jonathan Gresham and Bandito, we're going to go title versus title. That's the first match scheduled for the Supercard of Honor on April 1st. So you got that going for you. And that's covering everything. I think I covered all the bases. I'll leave it there. Jam-packed show on the Wrestling Observer podcast. Come back this Saturday as I do a post show for Royal Rumble. If I decide to do it live somehow, I will put it up on my social media so you'll know about that ahead of time. Otherwise, enjoy the Royal Rumble. This is a great time of year. At least we have a lot of hype, hope, and wishful thinking. And maybe WWE will surprise us, and they'll give us something that we'll actually really be happy about. But I look forward to talking about this next Wrestling Observer podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.